Your NFL Sundays are about to get a whole lot more magical. When you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV, you get the most live NFL games all in one place. And with Multiview, you can watch up to 4 games at once, so you can catch all the action right from the comfort of home. Watch every game every Sunday on NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Device and content restrictions apply. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Welcome to the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at conservation and sporting community news happening across the nation and on the Hill. Thanks for tuning in. This is the TSV Roundup. All right, it is another Wednesday, which means it is time for the Sportsman's Voice Roundup, your weekly look at news from around the nation concerning hunting, fishing, trapping, conservation issues. This week, we're going to jump right into our lead story. We're joined by Marie Newmiller. Outdoor activities heating up in the West, but not in a good way. Marie, welcome back to the show. You're on the road. Thanks for carving out the time in your busy schedule to bring us not such great news in Oregon.
Yes, and thank you for helping to highlight it because it will potentially impact hunting and fishing seasons.
Yeah, 2 weeks in a row with not the greatest news out of the Northwest, but basically it's hot and there's a drought situation creating fire hazards or fires in progress. Speed us up to what's going on. What are the impacts on the sporting community as far as closures and access and even fishing during certain times of the day?
Yes, so in Oregon, quite a few of the wildlife areas are burning. They're approaching millions of acres that are on fire right now. In addition, we're seeing it states throughout the West. Montana has had stream and river closings, or they've moved into hoot owl situation so that fishing can only occur up until about 2 p.m. That way you aren't handling the fish when the water temperatures are higher. That helps the fish survive any contact that they have. The lower those temperatures are, the better for them. So in Montana right now, most rivers are under that hoot owl restriction between 2 p.m. and midnight.
Well, for the people from not the region, can you explain what the hoot owl restriction is?
Yeah, so hoot owl a lot of times is a fire term. So you're not going to be using chainsaws or doing a lot of work that could spark a fire out during those hours when it's drier, when the heat and the sun are really strong. For fishing, the hoot owl, it's the same time period. It's usually 2 p.m. to midnight. And that's when the temperatures are rising, and that's raising the water temperature for the rivers and streams as well. And the higher that temperature is, the more stress it puts on the fish when they are caught or handled.
Yeah, that it seems like that time of the day too. Those cold water species targeted by traveling anglers and locals, that they're going to be deeper in the water and staying in those cold streams and in the bottom of those streams rather. So yeah, serves a good purpose, but can be arduous for access for your anglers, and I'm sure that bugs some people, but I think most of them probably get it, right? Not overstressing that fishery and that resource is paramount to having it for the future when we get out of these stressful conditions on the landscape. Are most of these naturally occurring? Marie, do you know, have any of these been man-made, accidental or otherwise?
I haven't seen the reports, but I know right now in Oregon, there's 117
Yeah.
active fires. And in the eastern side of Oregon, a lot of those did occur from some lightning strikes. But I'm sure, unfortunately, there probably are some careless fire starts as
Yeah.
well. But in Oregon, it's 117 active fires with over 1 million acres of land right now, including several wildlife areas that all recreationalists enjoy. Um, those are being closed, and ODFW is assessing how that will impact fall hunting. They've got crews out there working on those fires, but with over 1 million acres, it's going to take some time to get it all knocked down.
So for a timeline perspective, what is coming up here pretty quick as far as seasons and availability and special tag draws and what that means for those folks?
Yeah, so for example, in Washington State, fall bear season opened August
Yeah.
1st, and then the archery deer season will open September 1st, right around Labor Day weekend. So around that September 1st time. So those seasons are quickly approaching or have already opened. And as fire season moves on, that generally runs even through September before we start getting those fall rains. So it could impact some of those early seasons, if not into the fall seasons, depending on if we do get fall rains. I know northeastern Washington did just get a little bit of rain over the weekend, but don't know that that was enough to eliminate that fire risk.
Is this more acute this year than it has been in the past, or is this kind of a cyclical thing that every year you guys can depend on some sort of burn going on out there that may or may not affect the seasons?
It's been cyclical, and we've also seen reports out of some of our states. There were some areas where there was planned fire prevention and forestry control in place, but lawsuits had been filed, which prevented that controlled burn. And now lightning strike has caused a full burn in that area.
So
That's
that
hotter and out of
yeah, so
control.
that's interesting, right? As we talk about forest management, you talk about fire, both in the east and the west, and people have this real reaction to it right away. You try to work it through that this management on the ground and reducing fuel load, more so you're out your way than in the east. But there is that removal of that understory and getting rid of that brush. So it's a good brood rearing habitat for ground nesting birds. It's good for all the game and non-game species alike when you're removing that fuel load. So you're not losing millions of acres to fire, and then it becomes catastrophic and beyond a benefit to the landscape. When people out there are suing and bringing lawsuits, or is it more of a preservationist mindset? Is there just a complete ignorance to the way the natural orders of things are? Or what, I guess why are these people so passionate about not managing the landscape? And I mean, this, not only for the wilderness that has a problem, but out west, you guys, residents lose their homes, they lose their property. It's just it's gone.
Yeah. And it does become a public safety thing. I think as far as the websites or the lawsuits, sorry, not the website, we've seen a couple of reasons behind it. Maybe protection of an endangered species that's on that land. So they're concerned about how the controlled burns would have an impact on those endangered species. And sometimes it's just a protectionist view of letting the landscape take care of itself and removing that human presence. I think in each time it feels like those are misguided because responsible management can actually help sustain those landscapes and prevent those super hot fires that we're seeing. Um, an example of a really bad super hot fire was Labor Day of 2020. One burned through the Pearl Hill area as well as southwest of Spokane, Washington. And it burned through the shrub steppe so hot that it looked like you were on the
Yeah,
moon when you walked through after the fire.
yeah, they're just completely damaging all the root systems and anything that is in those soil levels where normally you would get some nutrient benefit results of a fire, but where it burns so hot, it's eviscerating everything all the way through
Yeah.
and down in there. Something I learned about fires when I was a kid that they will, when conditions are right, are go for. I think that was a term that was told to me by a firefighter back when I was a kid. But it's so dry that the fires will go underground, believe it or not, travel these root systems in these dry conditions and just start popping up many feet, yards, and spaces away from where the actual fire is, creating more problems and again, further degradation
Yeah.
to that landscape.
And we saw that in Montana. It was either a year or two ago. There was a tree that had sustained a lightning strike. And then months later, winds blew up and kicked up, and that fire that had been smoldering in those roots caused a larger
That's
wildfire.
crazy. Absolutely crazy. What, if anything, is being done to combat these right now? Fire departments and the wilderness firefighters going in there doing their thing as much as they can? Are people being told? Are they already closed certain areas so that, accidental fires can't continue to happen by way of people accessing campgrounds and public lands, things like that.
Yes. So Oregon on their website, which we have linked in the article, has already closed several access areas, including Troy Ranches and Iron Mountain. And it's quite a long list at the moment because so much of their area is impacted by fire. Other states are putting in different restrictions, like Montana's food owl restrictions. Um, Montana is also not allowing any cigarette smoking outside of
Uh,
legal in their public areas to help prevent, little sparks just can cause a lot of problems. I know Washington State is starting to put in some restrictions on target shooting on their
uh,
lands, on the WDFW lands, just to prevent any of those sparks from starting a fire. So we're seeing a lot of proactive measures put in place. And then DNR, especially in Washington State, has a lot of active measures once a fire is going. And we're seeing a lot more air traffic on the fires in my area, at least.
yeah. Well, that's all we can do is hope and pray that these folks, these professionals are out there being able to do what they can do, and then the public at large being educated on what not to do. Certainly not trying to cramp anyone's style or ruin vacations or their hunts. It's just trying to make sure that this stuff continues to be available in perpetuity and not sullying a landscape for decades to come as it recovers. It's a lot interesting here in the article you mentioned. There's actual thoughts to reimburse license and special CHAG draws. So they think it's noble of the agencies recognizing that and trying to, silver line a bad situation here, for at least for the sporting community.
Right. That is one nice thing they're working on in Oregon is if those special draw areas close for the duration of hunting season, then after the end of that hunting season, they'll consider refunds or preference points, reinstatements for those people who had drawn those special areas. It can be so hard when you're planning for it. You finally draw, you've done all of your scouting and you're planning and you're looking forward to it, and then you're closed by fire. But at the same time, we want to be safe when we're outdoors and not overstress the
Yeah,
wildlife.
for sure. And can't control acts of God, man. I mean, that's that's what they are, and um, adapt and overcome. But well, we appreciate it. Shedding some light on this and diving into this a little bit more, Marie. And we look forward to good news, hopefully at some point from you, and
Hopefully, yeah.
hopefully the rains come in the Northwest, and stuff gets tamped out, and people can go on with their seasons and their outdoor recreating as per usual.
Yes, hopefully. And like we mentioned in the article, CSF will continue to advocate for the use of active forest management practices to help decrease the intensity of wildfires so that maybe we don't see impacts to our hunting seasons in the future. I was just going to say, I know our coworker John is working very hard towards those
Mhm.
policies.
Yeah, John Colclasure, our newest director, forestry program director, is being stood up. More to come in the coming weeks on that, so stand by. But yeah,
Wonderful.
good announcement there that is forthcoming officially. Um, Not gonna have time to touch it today, but one parting thought I had is that aside from everything you cited here, these fires, especially out in the West, it have a direct effect on the aquifers of drinking water and create water issues as well that most people don't even often think about, as far as when that landscape is burned like you've talked about. And you would look at erosion and soil degradation, and then those water sources having the runoff and the pollution that results of it. And so it's so multifaceted and it runs so deep. And yeah, it's got the effects on everybody. So great article, worth highlighting for sure. And people can help by dissuading people from bringing frivolous lawsuits and allowing forest managers and conservation minded professionals to let them do what they got to do to make a bad situation right.
Absolutely. The more we can manage these fires and keep the temperature down on them, I think the better off we'll be all around.
Marie, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you as always, and we will catch up real soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks again to Marie for making that time while she's on the road, busy with work. Departure from typical protocols. We jumped right into that conversation due to her limited time. Didn't get a chance to give you a rundown of the rest of the story, so we'll do that now. Heading down to the Hill, Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation hosts a breakfast briefing on sustainable forest management and launching a new program with emphasis on forest policy. We're going to head to Minnesota, where we get an update on walleye on Millilax, taking a closer look at top CSF priority as it concerns reimbursement for fish and wildlife agencies for free and discounted licenses. We get an update on Fish and Wildlife Service release of the 2024-25 hunt fish rule and other mixed bag for sportsmen and women. And finally, we get an update on the Georgia Legislative Sportsmen's Caucus. Let's go to the Hill. Last week, more than 50 congressional staff, leaders of forest policy, state foresters, and key partners attended the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation Sustainable Forest Management Policy briefing that highlighted forest policies and programs impacting wildlife and hunter access on private working forests and federal forests. At the briefing, CSF announced its expanded emphasis on forest policy through the creation of a full-time director of forest policy position. Active forest management is critical for creating quality wildlife habitat, improving forest health and resiliency, mitigating risk to catastrophic wildfire, as we just talked about with Marie, and currently going on, increasing forest carbon sequestration and carbon storage capabilities, and increasing access for sportsmen and women. CSF regularly engages on forest policy, and through the creation of the new forest policy specific position, CSF will significantly increase its work on forest management issues that impact sportsmen and women at the state and federal levels on private and public lands. John Colclaser, formerly CSF's Southeastern States Director and trained forester, has stepped into the new role as Director of Forest Policy after spending 8 years on the CSF States Program team. Certainly a big congratulations to John, is well-deserved, and just an incredibly gifted and talented individual with a great knowledge of this portfolio. And then certainly we are excited to have him in that role and lead that for the organization and work with partners in the space and in policy. So it's definitely exciting. More on the event. Panelists at the briefing provided their perspectives on how sound forestry management policy supports wildlife conservation for game and non-game species, and the importance of collaborating with federal land managers to mitigate wildlife risks for the benefit of private and public forests, wildlife, and hunters and anglers. CSF, working with the National Alliance of Forestry Owners and other conservation partners to support the creation of the Forest Conservation Easement Program, to keep working forests working, and CSF supports the Fix Our Forest Act along with Federal Forest Resource Coalition, which contains several long-standing forest management priorities for the sportsman's community, including litigation reform and a cottonwood fix. The Sustainable Forest Management Policy briefing was a success and served as an excellent launch point for CSF's expanded emphasis on forest policy. As the backbone for conservation funding in the nation, America's 55 million sportsmen and women have earned a seat at the table, and CSF will work to ensure that the sporting conservation community is given a voice in forest management and beyond. For more information on active forest management, you can head to our website. If you get the EPUB TSV, there is a link you can click. And again, well-deserved and many accolades to John Colclaser for his new position. And we look forward to him leading the way. All right, heading up to Minnesota, Millilax Lakes. So there was a moratorium put on the take of walleye, a very tasty fish. And I have had the pleasure of fishing many years ago, Millilax, where I boated and harvested my first ever walleye, and that's how I can speak to its deliciousness. Well, let's get this update from Bob, see what's going on here. Originally limiting walleye anglers to only a catch and release, Minnesota Department of Natural Resources updated its regulations to allow anglers to harvest up to 2 walleye a day on Millilax Lake. So that's good. The original catch and release limit contributed to a significant decrease in angler participation on Millilax, a storied destination for anglers and an economic driver for the state's tourism economy. Earlier this year, CSF joined national and state partners in requesting that the agency review its walleye limit, which it has subsequently updated. In March, the aforementioned support that we joined with on a letter that requested a reexamination of the regulations for Millilax. The original DNR decision only allowed, as we said, catch and release for walleye until mid-August, where anglers could then bag 1 walleye in a slot between 21 and 23 inches or longer than 28 inches. That was the law of the land for the entirety of this year's fishing season, which opened May 11th, to the detriment of both Minnesota anglers and tourism industry that they support, with fishing pressure being about a third of what was projected. Millilax has experienced its fair share of variability of allowed harvest over the years, but restricting fishing opportunity to just catch and release without offering data that justify the decision prompted many anglers and stakeholders, including CSF, to question the decision. CSF has a long-standing history of supporting Fish and Wildlife Agency Management Authority, as these agencies are comprised of experts well equipped to make complex decisions that are best for the state's natural resources. However, in this case, where decisions are incongruent with the data available, CSF advocates for those decisions to be re-examined and revised, which is exactly what took place with the Millilax walleye restriction. Following an in-state regulation change beginning on August 16th, Minnesota anglers may harvest up to 2 walleye a day on Millilax through November 30th. There is a recent press release. The DNR acknowledged that Millilax has an abundance of walleye between the 18 and 20-inch size limit, and that with the Millilax catch and release regulation, anglers in the state have only harvested 26% of the allowed walleye take. CSF is appreciative of the updated regulation, which allows anglers to participate in time-honored outdoor traditions while contributing to the local tourism economy, as well as the successful management of Minnesota's storied natural resources. That would have been a bummer. Well, it was a bummer, not being able to enjoy those walleye and black crappie up there too. I'm going back over 20 years ago, but and the abundance of the fish back then and the feed that was put on, certainly fun to catch, but you like to bring them to the table too where you can. And so good reporting from Bob, and a good update there for anglers in Minnesota. This from Kaylee Leager. We're taking a closer look at reimbursement for Fish and Wildlife agencies for free and discounted licenses. This is a topic we've reported on quite a bit, and the article goes to highlight the concerns of those free and discounted licenses, the challenges that are presented when well-intended folks put forth legislation or a rule change to honor, take care of specific constituencies. I'm going to try to say here, I lost my train of thought. Senior citizens, got it, bag. Veterans, disabled veterans. Now you're starting to see other special interest groups, active law enforcement, first responder, firefighter, EMS. These are all well-intentioned and well and good. However, we start giving these things away for free, we start missing out, as we've reported on, those federal match dollars and how this whole unique system is funded. So there is a fix. The Tennessee model that we use on how to reimburse those funds There are states that have this as well already in place. Massachusetts has introduced legislation going back to 2021 through 2022. There was a bill introduced that went nowhere. And then currently, as previously reported, there is a bill in Massachusetts, Senate Bill 499, that looks to do this very thing. So hopefully in Massachusetts, we can get that across the finish line. Seems like there's a lot of interested parties to make that happen. So we just got to get there. This is a top priority, as stated. So we're hoping that we can replicate this in many, if not all, of the states in our country. So if you're listening to this as a legislator and you want to do some proactive bill writing, here you go. Great way to hit all the check boxes, taking care of certain constituencies that people think are deserving of those free and discounted licenses, while also taking care of conservation and your state agency so that mission delivery on the ground can be funded and not skipping a beat. Next up from Taylor Schmitz, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service announced the proposed 2024-25 hunt fish rule, which is an annual effort that is intended to increase opportunities for sportsmen and women to align state and federal hunting and fishing regulations within the National Wildlife Refuge System. The proposed hunt fish rule is a mixed bag for sportsmen and women as it seeks to expand access across 211,000 acres covering 12 different refuge system units, and encompass 53 distinct hunting and fishing opportunities. Unfortunately, the proposal also seeks to prohibit the use of traditional ammunition and tackle for newly expanded opportunities. While CSF strongly supports and appreciates the efforts by Fish and Wildlife Service to expand hunting and fishing opportunities, we are concerned that this proposal arbitrarily limits the use of traditional ammunition and tackle for new opportunities, which in turn can make access more challenging for sportsmen and women. Diving into the concerns we have, and specifically the use of lead ammunition and the arbitrarily restricted use of on the newly expanded opportunities, the action is certainly not aligned with state fishing and hunting regulations or the preferred approach of state fish and wildlife agencies through educational efforts and voluntarily incentive-based programming rather than outright bans. With this, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is creating confusion for sportsmen and women, law enforcement, and others by overlapping non-lead hunting opportunities with hunting opportunities where hunters can make their own determination as to what type of ammo they prefer while afield. For instance, sportsmen and women can use traditional ammunition on one side of the fence, but crossing over into one of the newly opened areas of a refuge unit, they are restricted from using lead ammunition. Furthermore, the proposal also does not appear to follow any scientific justification for what seems to be a random consortium of refuge units. Additionally, the restriction of lead ammunition for newly expanded opportunities in the proposal appears to run counter to voluntary, non-prohibitive, non-lead pilot projects announced by Fish and Wildlife Service less than 2 weeks ago. These pilot projects seek to allow hunters to make their own determination as to what type of ammo they prefer while afield rather than these arbitrary restrictions on the use of highly popular method of take. CSF maintains that restrictions on the use of lead ammunition and tackle should follow a science-driven process, which does not appear to be the case for this proposed hunt fish rule. It is confusing and unnecessarily so. And you think about the cost, many of us that have been doing this for a while, we can speak to that. those that might be new going to find a place to hunt and can access those refuge units, it's enough to square the state regulations and then know that you're crossing into this border and what the restrictions are. And then certainly there's a significant sticker shock when you go outside of those traditional means of take and equipment used by way of lead. That can definitely present a barrier for entry for sure. And as Taylor reported, there really is no good science, consistent science on the issue that bears that out. I say more to come on that, but it seems to be a perennial, long-standing issue here, and I guess until the science bears it out one way, bears it out that it is problematic, the use of traditional methods should stay in place and not be subjected to, I guess, environmental wish list items. We'll leave it at that for now and follow up when we have more to report. Finally, heading down to Georgia, there is a legislative sportsman's caucus update with new leaders. Recently, Representatives Chaz Cannon and Matt Dubnick were selected as new House co-chairs for the Georgia Legislative Sportsman's Caucus, joining the current co-chair, Senator Russ Goodman. Representatives Cannon and Dubnick step into the roles following former caucus co-chair Representative David Knight announcing his retirement after having served a successful 19-year legislative career. 3 co-chairs will provide leadership on sporting conservation policy and protect Georgia's rich sporting heritage by ensuring the interests of hunters, anglers, and recreational shooters and trappers are represented by pro-sportsman legislators in the Georgia General Assembly. Among the most effective legislative sportsman's caucus in the country, the caucus has championed numerous policy victories in Georgia for their 1.8 million hunter and anglers. In 2022, the caucus was instrumental in updating Georgia's no net loss baseline. The baseline was originally set in 2005, and the update protected additional 200,000 acres of public hunting land. In 2023, the caucus protected sportsmen and women access to Georgia's navigable streams. This year, the caucus successfully protected the financial privacy of Georgia's hunters and recreational shooters by prohibiting payment card networks from requiring or incentivizing the use of merchant category code that distinguishes a firearm retailer from other retailers. These are just a few of the recent successes of the caucus over the past several years. The caucus does host a variety of events each year to educate policymakers about economic impact and conservation funding benefits of sportsmen and women provided to the Peach State. In 2023, 1.8 million paid hunting and fishing license holders in Georgia generated $85 million in license sales. And matching Pittman, Robinson, Dingle Johnson federal funds through the user pay public benefit structure of the American System of Conservation Funding. Moreover, hunters in Georgia support 26,000 jobs, $891 million in salaries and wages, and $136 million in state and local taxes, with a total economic impact of $1.7 billion. Tip of the cap to the representatives for stepping in there. Thanks to Representative Knight for his leadership and dedication to Georgia sportsmen and women during his successful legislative career. And definitely we look forward to working with the new leadership in the caucus. So a bit of good news there out of Georgia. That's it. That's our update for this week, the week of August 5th, 2024. Thanks for tuning in. I invite you to go back to last week's feature presentation where we sat down with our Vice President of Policy, Brent Miller, where we get that halfway through update, our mid-year update of where we're at as far as an organization in our engagement, our wins, trends, things of that nature. It's a good listen, and certainly a good testament as to the behind-the-scenes work that we do here at CSF. So give that a listen. I can tell you, folks, next week you're going to want to tune into our feature episode dropping Thursday, where we catch up with the CEO of Ducks Unlimited and CSF board member, Adam Putnam. Great conversation to look forward to. That's the tease anyway. So you waterfowlers, other interests, do tune in for that one. It's going to be a good episode. We will see you guys next Wednesday for another update on things happening across the country and for that featured episode on Thursday. Thanks for bringing us along. And as always, CSF is your inside connection to outdoor legislation. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us on this edition of the Sportsman's Voice podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your support is crucial, and you can help us out right now by leaving a review, filling in those 5 stars where available, sharing this episode with friends and family, and engaging with us socially. CSF can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Together, we can protect the outdoor sports we love and continue to keep you informed wherever you are. That's it for this week. Until next time, we'll see you later.